What is going on, everybody? Welcome on into this edition of Warchant TV. It is the Warchant preseason top 40, the original, if you will. These votes get passed down like Heisman votes. I think I got Ryan Kelly's. I think Corey got Ryan Clark's. Ira's been hanging on to his since day one, as has Gene and Jeff Cameron. Welcome on in. Hit the thumbs up if you disagree with anything that we're going to say over the next 20 minutes as we debate where these guys stand within the 21 to 30 slot that we have. Just to refresh your mind, bottom of the screen scrolling are picks 31 through 40, which I don't know, just real quick, Ira, you want to talk about that? Just the fact that when you got guys like Toa Feely, Greedy Vance, Jarrett Jackson, Sam McCall, these guys at the bottom quadrant of a top 40, feels like, things are on the up and up.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you what, last year and the year before, when we were doing the top 40 list, and you guys all felt the same way, but after about the first 10 or 12, you started thinking, now how many wins did I think this team was going to win this year? Or games did I think this team was going to win this year? Because you just didn't see any talent beyond about 7 or 8, maybe 10 guys. And to your point, I mean, there's guys that didn't make this list who probably could have been, and certainly guys in the bottom 10 that last year or the year before probably would have been in that 10 to 15 range.
All right. Without further ado, then let's get to numbers 21 through 30, graphic courtesy of our own Tom Lang. As you can see here, the bottom part of 21 through 30. Let's start with Johnny Wilson. This is a guy that Corey and I have been talking a lot about on the podcast. Gene, I think we kind of disagree, but civilly, obviously, about what he could become for this program. You've got him at 11. Ira's got him at 38. One of you guys has got to be right, so I like this. Explain yourself, Gene.
All right, yeah, I'm going to duke it out here. It's funny when I saw this out when we did the outline, I'm like, the two guys I went out on the limb on the most rated high, they're both in this group, so I'm going to have to defend myself here for rating these guys high. But, our boy Johnny Wilson, there's a couple things that jump out to me. First of all, he's got a skill set and a physicality that there's nobody else on the team like him. I mean, he's 6'7", and we saw it out there at practice, how he just stands above the rest of the group. I mean, and look at the rest of that receiver core. I mean, you got guys, what's Pittman, 5'11", Douglas and Keyshawn are 5'9", Pokey Wilson maybe goes 6 foot if he's lucky. I mean, he's the only guy there's never been solid production out of the tight end. So I think he's got the unique skill set that he's the guy Jordan Travis is going to look to in the red zone. I think he's got a great opportunity to get a lot of scores in this game. And I'm going to say with my chest right now, I'm going to go out on a limb here in June. Johnny Wilson will lead the receiving corps in touchdowns in 2022. Now mark it down, Aslan, record that for prosperity. When I'm wrong, burn the tape. But we don't have tape anymore. Unfortunately, it's all digital. It's recorded forever. But so, yeah, I just really think he's just so unique. And look, I know Ira's probably going to bring up this guy couldn't catch a cold. During the spring, he was dropping everything in sight. He was incredibly inconsistent. But I guess, those of us who follow the NFL may remember last year. If anybody listened to the offseason reports, preseason practices, NFL, there's a rookie for the Cincinnati Bengals named Jamar Chase. And if you ever heard all those reports, everybody was down on him. He was dropping everything in practice. He was going to be a bust the first year. He's not going to do anything. Well, he finished third in the NFL in touchdowns and fourth in receiving yards. And by the end of the year, was the most explosive receiver in the NFL. And that's not saying Johnny Wilson's going to be that, but I think we overrate drops. They're frustrating. They're maddening. We see them all the time, but it's not maybe indicative of what his production could be this year, unless he is so bad the coaches just lose confidence in him. But I think that skill will overcome the occasional drop he has.
The law background showing off there for Gene. Ira, do you have anything left to pick off the bone from that argument?
No, I was wrong. I just say that.
The raise is in the mail there, Ira.
I actually like Johnny Wilson better than it looks based on what I did with him in my rankings. But what happened was I just kind of kept putting in guys that I knew were going to play bigger roles, and I just kind of kept sliding him down. And then at the end, I was like, what did I just do? But I think he's definitely a boomer bust guy, and I think that's why it's reflected in these picks. He's a guy that's either going to make Mike Norvell and those coaches look like geniuses because he's going to have 8 to 10 touchdowns and be a red zone threat and all of the rest, or he's going to drop some key passes and become a non-factor, and people are going to say, why'd you waste one of your precious transfer spots on that guy? But if I had to put money on it, I think Gene's probably more right than I am. I just kind of, as I was going through it, I kept going with guys who I knew were going to contribute ahead of him and just chose not to take a risk. But it's hard to defend.
It doesn't also seem like it's either or, right? Like I think it's going to be some of both. he is going to make some maddening plays. He's also maybe going to win you a game with 2 crazy touchdown catches that nobody else on your team can make. And that's what we saw in the spring, right? Like we'd see him drop some easy ones and make some ridiculous catches. And they, like Gene said, they just don't have anybody like this. If he plays up to his potential and becomes like Gene says, he might be the most impactful offensive player not named Jordan Travis. That's how big a deal he could be if he's scoring 11 touchdowns, if he's the red zone guy and the third down guy, he's going to be a hugely impactful player. That said, I think I had him in the 20s somewhere. I split the difference between you two crazy kids.
So, hey, Johnny, my message right now, spend every waking moment in the jugs machine, buddy, between now and that first game. So you make me look good.
All right. Well, hey, let's talk about somebody that's going to touch the ball on every offensive snap, and that's the center position. Number 28, we've got Maurice Smith. Corey, I've got him at 12, and I kind of hedged him with Caden Lyles. You've got him at 39. You mentioned the crazy catches you saw Johnny Wilson make at practice. I don't recall that, but I think I recall seeing Maurice Smith maybe play some more significant snaps in spring. So I think he's got to have a bit of a leg up on Caden Lyles at this point, but it seems like you probably think maybe the opposite of me per usual.
Yeah, I just think by the time Duquesne rolls around, I just personally feel Caden Lyles will be the starting center. And if he is, how important is your backup center? Because like we talked about on Wake Up Warchant, I don't know that Maurice Smith is going to be moved anywhere else. These other guys have so much versatility, they can move to different places if they don't win a job at tackle or guard. But Maurice Smith is a center. And if he's not the starting center, he's probably not going to be all that impactful. I hedged it a little bit because I'm not, from what I saw from Caden Lyles, big dude, certainly strong, I'm not 100% convinced he's going to win the job. If I was, Maurice Smith wouldn't have been on my list at all. But I did rank him just to hedge it because there is a chance he will actually hold on to the starting spot because he should be healthier now. He was just not healthy last year, and it showed.
Yeah. Well, I guess I think that's what it comes down to. I just think that Maurice has got so much experience in this scheme, if you will, under Coach Alex Atkins, that if his back, I think I mentioned it on the podcast the other day. Imagine like of all the positions to play in football, maybe the exception of defensive tackle with a bum back having to tough it out at the center position. If Maurice is mended there, I think he'll be able to hang on. And if he doesn't, man, then I think they'll be all right with Caden Lyles. So I feel good about wherever those guys are going to be. I have them both close. I think if I had Maurice 12th, I probably had Caden 13th or 14th. So I feel good about the future of the offense there at the center position. A reminder, as we progress here through picks number 21 through 30, this is all about the impact for this coming season. So if you think that these guys got higher ceilings 2 years down the road or better NFL futures, cool. But we're just using what's going to happen, we think, in this upcoming season. So speaking of this upcoming season and young guys, new talent infused into this roster, probably the best recruit on paper was Azareye'h Thomas out of Niceville High School. LSU wanted him. Their coach got fired. Texas wanted him a little bit. Seems like Florida wanted him. Their coach went by the wayside. And then Mike Norvell kind of was like, hey, man, I've been here since day one, buddy. Come to Tallahassee. And sure enough, he did. And he looked quite good in the spring, I feel like. Gene, what do you like about Azareye'h Thomas? You got him high. I don't want to say high. You got him at 18th. You got very good optimism about him. What did you see and what do you like from Azareye'h Thomas?
Yeah, I think I went against the rules here, and I'm doing NFL talent, future potential, maybe more than impact this season, I got to admit. But that said, you nailed it, Aslan, in terms of the talent. And I had even heard a little birdie that's friends with a former FSU coach talk to him, and he said, AZ, I'm just calling him AZ because I know Corey's got the pronunciation licked, but I'm calling him AZ. And he told me he's the best player on the roster. And in my opinion, when you look, there's probably maybe 4 or 5 guys you can look at this roster and say they're playing on Sundays. He's one of them. I just think that there's very few players at his talent level that Cream has to eventually rise to the top. We saw it a little bit last year with Duke Cooper. By the end of the season, I think AZ is maybe even more talented. I just can't think you're going to keep him off the field. And we saw him out there in the spring. When he's out there, man, you notice him. He makes plays. I just think he's too good to keep off the field, and I think he's going to have, especially in the second half of the season, I think he makes a significant impact.
What do you think, Ira? Is this a battle of talent versus, I guess, numbers and seniority in front of him, and we'll have to see how it's going to play out? You had him at 36, which I think kind of falls a little bit more in line with what Corey and I had.
Yeah, I had him and Sam McCall both around that same spot in the mid-30s, just because, again, I think that they're super talented. They're 2 of the most talented guys on the team, without question, definitely 2 of the most athletic guys on the team. But I do think they've got a lot of experience at corner, and I think that, I just think that there's a good chance. I think Jarian Jones is going to bounce back better this year. I think they've got a couple other options. Greedy Vance transferred in. There's a lot of competition in that position, so to expect true freshmen to go out there and win those jobs, I think is a lot to ask. Now, by the end of the season, that may be the case. But I think over the course of a season, that's why I had them a little bit lower. Certainly in the top 40, but I wouldn't go as high as the top 15 or 20 because I just don't know when it is that they're going to make that impact.
I like this one. We go to number 30 now, Jakai Douglas. Tom had him at 22. I think that was the top, the highest pick of anybody on our panel. Austin Cox had him at 39. Now, Corey, I think this is a really good sort of case study for how we do rank and value what the impact that these guys can make because, I mean, if that Notre Dame game ends up with Florida State winning it, we probably talk a lot more about like the impactful plays that Jakai Douglas was able to make with a big splash play. The Miami game obviously is overshadowed by the play of Jermaine Thomas and 4th and 14 part 2. But I think if you're a Miami fan, you probably thought you were losing grip of that game as soon as Jakai Douglas was running down the sideline catching that pass. So he's a guy that maybe he won't get as many passes his way, but do we think that he's a guy that will probably maximize those opportunities and have a big play potential?
Yeah, I think so. First off, shout out to Jermaine Thomas. It's been a minute since I thought of that kid. Old number 38. Good
Jermaine
player.
Johnson. I apologize.
We knew who you meant. We knew who you meant. I just like the going down memory lane, man. That's awesome. He should have stayed in the game against Georgia Tech, and they would have won that game, but they took him out.
Oh, Corey had to.
Sorry. This is now derailed.
He was gassed, man. He was gassed.
I know. I think, Jakai Douglas is a really interesting one, man. It happened to me again when I was doing this list, much like it happened to me when we started to go out to spring practice. I hate to admit this. Sometimes I forget he's in the receiving corps, which is a weird thing to admit. But it's like you think about Pittman, you think about Wilson, you think about both Wilsons, even Helton, and you're like, okay, because Jakai's kind of gone from running back to receiver. Now he's a full-time receiver, and the dude, when he got his shot, he made plays. And I think that's what he's going to be. I don't think he's going to be a 50-catch guy. I don't think he might even be a 30-catch guy. But I think he's going to make enough impactful plays in the passing game. Maybe it's one touchdown every 2 games, but they're huge plays, or a 60-yarder that sets up a touchdown, where I think he necessitates a ranking about where he is. I don't think he's a top 10 guy on this roster by any means, but I think he can make enough big plays in this offense, which needs playmakers, that he can warrant that ranking being where it is.
Isn't it worth noting, too, that this is really the first time he's full-time? You know, he kind of bounced around where he's playing. I think that he has full-time. We saw that first. Now, he kind of tapered off in the spring, but that first week or so, man, he was noticeable. He was making plays out there. And I think to Corey's point, he's a guy that's got a skill set to make big plays. So I think he definitely deserves to be out there, and he's a full-time receiver now. And will it be when they go to those 3 wideouts, and I'm curious your guys' thoughts, do you think he's going to be the slot? Is he going to push aside maybe Keyshawn kind of out of the thing, or is we going to see just a mix of those 2 guys?
Well, I think, and Corey could talk about it as well because he focused a lot on the receivers in the spring. But I think that there's a good chance Micah Pittman may end up in the slot a lot because you still have Malik McLean. Yeah. You've got Johnny Wilson. You've got,
I mean, there's depth. What is that?
Yeah. So, it depends, looking for the best matchups. But I think Jakai's, man, he's definitely talented. But that Micah, and hey, look, they go 4 wides, go crazy, maybe go 5 wides, let Jordan make some things happen, and maybe
Spread
get all those guys on the field.
And I think with Jakai, man, he is, when you get him on a safety or certainly on a linebacker, that's a nightmare. They can't cover him, and that's what I think we saw in the spring, and we saw it against Notre Dame, and we saw it against Miami. When you get a flat-footed safety against Jakai Douglas, he's by them. And he did that a lot in the spring on the 7-on-7 stuff. They didn't have many people that could stay in front of him. And so I think with him, again, he's not somebody you're just going to throw it up to. Oh, he's even. Just throw it up. He'll make a play. But when you see a matchup you like, if they have to shift somebody down to cover Jakai Douglas in the slot, that's a tough cover. That's a tough ask for anyone. And I think that's how they try to design these plays to get these guys one-on-one opportunities. And I think Jakai, is one of the guys that's proven in that position, in that circumstance, that he can get open and go make plays.
I like this one as we round up things here in 21 to 30 in terms of the guys we're spotlighting with the greatest variance on our panel here. Amari Gaynor checks in at 23 overall with everybody's votes tabulated by Gene. Shout out to Gene again, by the way, for doing that. Ira, you've got Amari Gaynor. I like this. If he is 14th, as you have picked him on your sheet, on your picks there, this is going to be a really, really salty defense. I like it. I'm intrigued by him possibly being the 14th most impactful player on this team. Tom had him at 40th. But again, with a 4-2-5 and, 2 backers on the field, Tatum Bethune probably has one of those spots sealed up. Do you just think that Gaynor is going to be able to hold on onto the other one and make more flash plays and those opportunities that he will have?
I think there is a question about scheme and how they use him and whether or not they can use him as one of those inside linebackers or not. I would expect Tatum Bethune and Kalen DeLoach will be the starters at inside linebacker. But I think they're going to get Gainer on the field a lot. I mean, I know he's not what they want in an inside linebacker apparently, but I mean, they've proven that by the fact that they don't start him. But the guy just makes plays. I mean, they may not be behind the line of scrimmage. They may not be huge game-changing plays, but he had 60 tackles last year as mostly a guy that came off the bench. He led them in tackles, I think, each of the 2 previous seasons. I think, man, to me, a little bit's on Adam Fuller and his staff. Hey, figure out a way to get that guy on the field because he's got rangy and he's athletic and he can make tackles. He's a sure tackler when he's in the right position and makes the play. So I think I thought he came on in the spring. I thought he looked more impressive as the spring went on. I think he's maybe getting more comfortable. The fact that he came back for this season, I think, is a good sign. I think a lot of people expected him to leave after last year. So I think Amari Gainer is going to have his best season yet. Whether or not he's one of those 2 inside starters, that I don't know, but I think he's still going to be a really impactful player.
I mean, raw tools and spades, Gene, Amari Gainer. I mean, could you see him finally, fulfilling this vast potential that he had when he came to Florida State?
I'm kind of the other spectrum. I don't remember exactly where I voted him, but definitely nowhere in the range Ira did for that one, probably in the 30s somewhere. To me, look, I just think he's going to get pinched out. I think he's put up those numbers out of necessity. There just hasn't been anybody to play linebacker. They've been horrible there, and he's been okay, which has been good enough to put up good numbers. But I think between DeLoach and Bethune, I think you've got 2 viable, pretty good linebackers, and I think he may be pinched out, and I think he's going to see less time on the field. I just don't know who you're going to pull off in that formation. Now, if they go to more 3 linebacker sets, do some hybrid stuff with him, get him out on the edge a little bit more, maybe he will. Maybe like Ira says, they find a way to get him on the field. But, man, I don't know at linebacker. He to me, he's just been okay the last couple of years, and I think they're better than okay now. So I just don't see he's going to be on the field as much as maybe we think.
You just hope they can figure out a way to get him near a passer. Like if he's – I know he's not a down lineman, but maybe on some third down situations, he is one of the rush ins. If you can't figure out who the opposite of Burse is, he just like Ira said, it's not like they have a lot of athletes like that dude on the field. Like he's 6'3", runs well, is really physical. Like there should be a place in this defense for somebody like that, especially somebody that tackles well. And maybe it's coming off the edge sometimes, at least every now and again, using that skill set. If he actually does have that skill set and can actually rush the passer, it's one thing to wish it. Can he do it? Because if he can make a big impact. Otherwise, yeah, I agree with Gene. I kind of feel like we know what he is. He's just a pretty good college football player.
Just a guy that has led them in tackles for 2 of the last 3 seasons.
And the worst linebacker core in all of college football.
Well, look, you brought in one guy from UCF, and all of a sudden Amari Gainer can't contribute anymore. I just think maybe it's a 3-3-5. Maybe you run some of that and get him on the field more. I just, again, you don't have a ton of guys that can get after the quarterback. You don't have a ton of athletic guys. It's Tatum Bethune's a nice player. I really like him, but he's not necessarily a sideline guy.
Don't you think Amari could be used rushing the passer though? Like
that's what I like. Yeah, no. Your point there. Yeah, I do think you're right. He is athletically better than some of the people they have, and I think in those rush situations, I think that'd be a good fit for him. So hopefully, the coaching staff's smart enough to figure that out. But like I said, I don't see him a whole lot of linebacker or as much as we have the last couple of years.
Gene had him at 35. He is 6'3", 223. Past season, played in all 12 games, 59 tackles, 5.5 for loss, a sack, 2 hurries, and 2 breakups, and a forced fumble. And he recovered the fumble. So
big time. There you
it's
go,
crazy.
Amari.
Sometimes some of these things get lost in the wash, man. We kind of fail to realize. I was looking at like Keyshawn Helton's numbers on PFF before we recorded this. I'm like, man, I slept on Keyshawn. I probably should put him on my top 40. So again, I think these are good problems, quote unquote, that we were facing. So there it is, everybody. That's 21 through 30. Now we're getting to the real top tier of this roster and hopefully what will be a successful season for Florida State. So 16 and 20 coming up. We'll have to focus more on these guys. We'll break it down in 5s rather than 10. And apparently 3 offensive linemen all will be battling for playing time, find themselves in the top 20 here as we go to the next part of the countdown. Jeff Cameron, Tom Lang will be reacting and sharing their top 40 on their show 1 to 3 o'clock here on Warchant TV on YouTube, as well as 93.3 FM in Tallahassee. Corey and I'll probably kick it around too on the podcast that we do, Wake Up Warchant. So stay connected, Warchant.
Ira.
Oh,
As a-
do it.
My last, you got to give me my last.
Oh, he wants the last word.
I just wanted to echo what something that Gene said on the message boards. I thought was really good because it kind of explained why some of these, especially from 20 to 40, why some of these picks are kind of all over the place. And a lot of it's because it's guys, not in Amari Gainer's case, but in Johnny Wilson's case and Sam McCall and Azareye'h Thomas, a lot of those guys where we're kind of varying a lot. A lot of these guys are guys we haven't seen yet at Florida State. And so it's hard to predict this top 20. There's still some transfers in there as well. But I think there's some more proven commodities. But I think that's part of why there's been such varying answers on some of these guys, is because a lot of these guys are, first time we've seen them.
Yeah. Hey, don't let homeboy poke you around on the boards. I saw him guffing us about the top 40. He's going to watch this.
I had to stand up. I had to stand up for us. I mean, that's this is a tough gig we got here, man. We got our opinions.
Absolutely.
And Ira says we see a guy for a couple of weeks in practice. We haven't seen him in a uniform of Florida State. We don't know how he's going to. I mean, he looks good.
Yeah.
You never know. He looks bad. I mean, it could be completely different. It's a whole new world with these transfers.
No, and the only reason I bring it up is because if somebody has a question, and I think it's a valid question, other people may have the same question. So it's, you just want to kind of explain why that would be.
Well, we do it for lively debates, Ira. That's the real reason.
True.
That's right. Shout out to homeboy, by the way. I'm sure you're watching this too. Let us know what you think about this one. Hey, again, hit that thumbs up if you disagree with anything that we just said on this program here. That's Ira Schofel. That's Gene Williams. And that's Corey Clark over there. Thanks for watching, everybody. Again, hit that thumbs up, subscribe, lower right corner as well. And be on the lookout for 16 through 20, as well as plenty of recruiting news over at warchant.com, the ultimate Seminole Sports.